Hi there, I'm Joe Ty from Values Coach, and this is a recording, a makeup for the sessions that I conducted at Children's Hospital of New Orleans, introducing you to the concept of a culture of ownership and the process and the content that we're going to be covering over the next 3 years together. But let's start by talking about enthusiasm. You know, enthusiasm is such an important human quality, and it's something that we're all born with. See this little kid running toward the pool, let me at it, where's life? And we're all born with this sort of passion, this joy, this curiosity, this spark that we have. And what happens to us? We run into life. We run into parents who tell us, no, don't touch that. No, don't play in the street. No, don't do that. We go to school and teachers tell us to sit down and shut up and do our homework. And we go out in the playground and the bullies push us around and call us nasty names like teacher's pet and apple polisher. Then we go to work and we run into bosses and they tell us to sit down and shut up and do our work. And we go to the break room and there are more bullies in there who tell us, call us nasty names like overachiever and quota buster and brown noser, and they push us around. Now there's a more important question, isn't there? And that is, how do we respark that joy, that passion that we were born with, that we once had? And I can show you that in one picture, and there it is. And if you want to respark that joy, that energy, that curiosity you once had, you have to be willing to do 3 things. Number 1, you have to be willing to get dirty. You got to be willing to put your hands into the problems. If you're standing on the sideline saying, not my job, not my problem, you're going to miss out on so much in life. Number 2, you have to be willing to take a leap. And sometimes it's a leap of faith. You're not sure that there's water in the pool. Anybody who has ever started a business knows there's no guarantee of success. Written a book, there's no guarantee that you're going to get it published, much less have millions of people read it. But you have to be willing to take the leap. And third, you have to stop worrying about what you think other people might think of you. Trust me, this lady is not worried about what you think of her. And if you would admit to yourself how infrequently other people think of you, you wouldn't worry about what they think of you. It would make it much easier for you to be yourself. And I want to remind you why it is we do what we do. My mom is 89 years old. She lives in San Antonio, Texas. And about a year ago, I got a call from Northeast Methodist Hospital in San Antonio. Your mom's been admitted. So, of course, I hopped on the next flight to San Antonio. I go to the hospital, go to the nurse's station, and ask for the room where my mom is. And the unit clerk smiles and she says, oh, yes, you mean the lady who's been asking for a hot dog. And I say, no, my mom's almost 90 years old. And the unit clerk says, oh, yeah, that's the one, Ms. Ty. I go into my mom's room and there she is. And I ask her, how you doing, Mom? And she says, well, I'm doing okay. They're taking good care of me, so I could go home in a couple of days probably. And I look at that tray of food and I say, what's the matter, Mom? That looks pretty good. Aren't you hungry? And she says, well, I really am hungry, but all I'm craving is a hot dog, and they don't have hot dogs here at the hospital. That afternoon, her nurse, Arturo Rodriguez, brought my mom a hot dog. Now, look at the look on my mom's face. That is the look of outstanding patient satisfaction. Look at the look on Arturo's face. That is what a highly engaged employee or a caregiver looks like. Now, let me point out that it is not in Arturo's job description to drive across the highway to a diner and buy a hot dog for a little old lady because that's something she's been craving. He could not be held accountable for that. It won't be in his performance appraisal. In fact, had he never done it, nobody would have even noticed. He did that because he's not just renting a spot on the organization chart. He's thinking like an owner. He's owning his relationship with that patient. Now, my mom, even though she's almost 90, she's lived in San Antonio for a very long time, and she talks to a lot of people. What do you think she's going to tell all her friends about her stay at Northeast Methodist Hospital? Is she going to talk about how the nurses gave her the right medications? or the respiratory therapist gave her a chest thumping therapy session? Or is she going to talk about Arturo and the hot dog? And when Arturo goes to the gym, talks to his buddies, what's he going to talk about? Oh, I had this little old lady and I gave her the right meds today. Or I drove across the highway, I bought her a hot dog, and you should have seen the smile on her face. And you know, the things that really make us special, the things that make us special in the eyes of the children that we care for, or the families that we care for, often are the things that are above and beyond the basic job description. And I want to share the most important insights that we've learned in many years of working with Values Coach. Insight number one, culture does not change unless and until people change. You know, we talk about changing culture, but the culture is shaped by the collective attitudes and behaviors of the people who work in the organization. And if nobody is willing to change how they think and how they behave, you can have a program of the month and a motivational speaker and give everybody a book, but you're going to be right back to where you were before. Unless people are willing to say, you know, we need to change our culture here, and I need to be part of that solution, because perhaps right now I'm part of the problem. But guiding insight number two is this: people will not change unless you give them new tools, new structure, and inspire them to use those. We've all tried to change and failed, haven't we? We've all got the New Year's resolution that was dead on arrival. We've all said, this is the year I'm going to quit smoking or apply to graduate school or whatever it is. And any year goes by and we haven't done it. And a big part of what we are going to be doing together over this next 3 years is sharing those tools and those strategies for how you can be not just a better caregiver, a better employee, but a better parent, a better citizen, a better person. I got a letter from one of the CEOs of a hospital we'd worked with for a long time. He said, I got a whole new team and didn't have to change the people because they changed themselves. And I have come to see that as the gold standard of culture change. When enough people make that personal commitment to be a better individual, then the culture changes positively, profoundly, and permanently. And you might have heard this saying, there's no I in team. That's not true. There is an I in team, and the I in team is you. The I in team is each and every one of us trying to be a more effective individual, and by doing that, we help to create a more effective team. And I found this picture on the internet, and what a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? What do you see when you look in the mirror? Are you like the tabby cat who looks in the mirror and sees your potential, who you could be? Or are you like so many of us, many days, me included, you look in the mirror and pretend to see less than what's really there looking back at you? And the challenge in life is, how do you inspire yourself? How do you find the courage and the determination to look in the mirror and see not just who's there now, but who could I be if I didn't let fear stop me from doing what I have to do? Who could I be if I talked back to negative self-talk, and if I overcame my self-imposed beliefs about my own limitations? Who could I be if I could do a better job of living my values? You know, I love this bumper sticker. I used to have superhuman powers, but my therapist took them all away. And isn't that what happens to us? You know, these two people have the same job, don't they? What's different? Their attitude. Who do you think is happier? Dances with mops or mopes with mop? Who would you rather work with? Dances or mopes? Who would you rather live with? And who would you rather be like yourself? One of the most important choices you make, and you make it every day, all day, every day, is what is your attitude? What's your attitude about your work? What's your attitude about other people? What's your attitude when you face rejection and failure and adversity? Are you going to be a victim and whine and complain? Or are you going to be a winner and pick yourself up and fight a good fight? And there's an invisible barrier on the potential of Chinola and every other organization, and that is the collective attitudes and the behaviors of the people who work there. And our challenge is, how do we do a better job of serving the kids that we serve and the families that we serve and the community that we serve by doing a better job of being better people ourselves? And here's the problem. Organizations that study employee engagement, including Gallup and Avatar, Press Ganey, Values Coach, my company, What we find is that in the average organization, only about 1 in 4 people are fully engaged. They show up every day with their hard hat and their lunch pail and they go to work. 6 out of 10 people are not engaged. That doesn't mean they're doing a bad job necessarily, but all they're doing is the job, and at quitting time, they're out of there. And in the average organization, 15% of people are aggressively disengaged. They're the ones who are always whining and complaining and not really doing their work. Those highly engaged people, those are the spark plugs. They walk into a room with a smile and a can-do attitude, and they inspire and lift everybody up. And then you have the zombies. Another day, another dollar. Is it 5 o'clock yet? Is it Friday yet? Is it time to retire yet? And that's how they go through work. That's how they go through life. And then you have the emotional vampires, the people who with a look or a crossed eyes or a crossed arms can suck the joy out of the work, suck the energy out of a workplace, suck the life out of everybody around them. These are the bullies. We call them pickle suckers because they look like they've always been sucking on a dill pickle with the frowns on their faces. And that gets me to this journey that we're going to be making together, the journey from a culture of accountability to a culture of ownership. If you take that word accountable and break it down, it means able to be counted. And especially in healthcare, you cannot count the things that most matter. How do you hold somebody accountable for compassion or pride? How do you crack the whip to make somebody be more loyal to an organization? Those things have to come from within. Nobody ever checks the oil in a rental car, do they? You might put gas in the tank if that's in the contract because you're accountable for it, but you don't wash it and wax it. You don't change the oil because there's no pride of ownership. So here's what 660 Chinola people told me about your perceptions of the culture at Chinola. The first 2 questions had to do with me personally, you, the person answering the question. And the first one said, I am personally determined to give my best effort at work every day. 100% either strongly agreed, mostly strongly agreed, or agreed with that statement. And the second question, I am personally committed to practicing the values of this organization. Again, we're at almost 100%. One person disagreed, not sure why. Then you ask about our colleagues, the people I work with. And there we see a bit of a reduction, don't we? We're down to about 80% either agreeing or strongly agreeing, which means that more than 2 out of 10 do not agree with that statement. And then our people are committed to assuring that those values are reflected in the work they do. We're still at about 70%. So 3 out of 10 not agreeing, which, by the way, compared to many other organizations we work with, this is really very good. Our people feel a genuine sense of pride at being a member of our team. Still about 7 out of 10. Pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. Our people effectively manage change. And we're facing an era where there's going to be constant and ongoing change in healthcare. And it's really important that we learn how to effectively manage it and that we not just complain about problems, but we work to find solutions. And there are only about half of respondents agreed or strongly agreed with the statement that we do a pretty good job with that here at Chinola. I consider this to be the acid test of a culture. Our culture does not tolerate bullying, toxic negativity, or disrespectful behavior. And about 4 out of 10 respondents did not agree with that statement at Chinola. And again, we've seen a whole lot worse than this, but it could be a whole lot better, couldn't it? And a related question, our managers effectively deal with those attitudes and behaviors. And again, about half agree and half do not agree with that statement. I feel encouraged by my leadership team. This is really good. 75% either agree or strongly agree. So I have good news and bad news in these results. And the good news, and it really is good news, there was almost no strongly disagree with any of those questions. And we've seen it. We've seen 30, 35% strongly disagree that we have pride in our work, that we treat people with respect, that we live our values. And when you see that, you know that you're going to have a really tough slog to try to change the culture because you're swimming against a very strong current going the other way. We do not see that here at Chinola. But the bad news is only about 2 out of 10 opportunities did people strongly agree with something positive about your organization, which says that your perception of your culture is that it's pretty good, but it's not great. And so I ask, would you use that number on a billboard ad? Here's what the billboard would look like. We give you great care with an okay attitude. And, the question is it really in the perception of the kid or of the parent, is it really great care if it's delivered with just an okay attitude? So another question, if those results reflect the culture, will that support your reputation for being a great place to work? This beautiful new building that's under construction now, that's probably not going to take care of your culture challenges. You have to work on what we call the invisible architecture that's going to go inside of that building. And the Chinola culture will only be better when the people who work at Children's Hospital of New Orleans make that commitment to be better at an individual level, because you will never exceed the expectations that you set for yourself, nor will you ever exceed the limitations that you place upon yourself. And the whole purpose of our work together is really focused on each of us as an individual. And the Florence challenge that I'm giving you is to be at a personal level, to be more emotionally positive, more self-empowered, and more fully engaged. And all of you have this certificate of commitment, and I'm encouraging you to read it, think about it, and if you're willing to make that commitment, to sign it, date it, and post it. And we've seen people in hospitals all across America posting these things in places where they can be seen not only by coworkers, but by patients, by family members, by visitors. And when people make that commitment, it can have a profoundly positive change on the culture. So let's do a little deeper dive into those three things. Emotionally positive. Cy Wakeman is a speaker and a consultant, and in her book, No Ego, she wrote that their research shows the average worker spends 2.5 hours per day on drama, on whining, on complaining, on gossip. And that's pretty consistent with what we find in our culture assessment surveys. And when my friend and colleague Bob Dent and I were working on the book we were doing on building a culture of ownership in healthcare, we were so appalled by the prevalence of words like burnout, bullying, disrespect, incivility, disengagement, compassion fatigue, even suicide in healthcare organizations. We called it the healthcare crisis within. And we may or may not be able to do anything about what's happening with Obamacare, Trump care, whatever care is coming out of Washington or Baton Rouge. But we can do something about what's going on within our organization. And I want to share with you a simple, not always easy, but simple promise that will change your life. And if enough of us take it to heart, it will transform our organization. And we call it the Pickle Pledge. And it says, I will turn every complaint, my head is killing me, into a blessing. Thank God for modern pharmacology, or a constructive suggestion. The first symptom of dehydration is a headache. I should drink some water. And there's nothing you can complain about that you cannot find both a blessing and a constructive suggestion. So I had to park 6 blocks away and walk all the way to the mall becomes, thank God you have legs. There are a lot of people in wheelchairs would give anything to walk 6 blocks. Thank God you have a mall and a little bit of money to spend in the mall. There are a lot of places where that's an unheard of luxury. And if you ate fewer donuts and spent more time at the gym, walking 6 blocks wouldn't have been such a hardship. And there's a footnote, and it says, by taking this pledge, I'm promising that I'm not going to waste my time and my energy on toxic emotional negativity, and I'm not going to commiserate with those who steal my energy with blaming, complaining, and gossiping and other forms of toxic negativity. And this challenge that I'm giving you and every hospital is taken on a life of its own. We are seeing singing pickles, dancing pickles, hula pickles, pickle parties, pickle piñatas, people decorating their workspaces with the Pickle Pledge, declaring their work area to be a pickle-free zone. I don't want to hear your whining and complaining. Take it to HR. They get paid to hear it. We don't. People are dancing, making cakes. They're having parties, doing all kinds of fun hoop-de-doo. People are bringing in pickle jars, and they fine each other. Every time you're caught whining or complaining, you're invited, in a nice, gentle way, hopefully, to put a quarter in a pickle jar. I heard about one guy. He came in, said, I know it's going to be a shitty day. Here's $1. I'm paying in advance. And what kind of a day do you think he had? He actually had a really great day, because instead of the old passive-aggressive thing, everybody staying away from him, they challenged it. They laughed about it. He didn't get a refund, but he did have a great day. People are decorating pickle jars in the most amazingly creative ways. I know I'm going to see some very creative things at Chinola. There's a hospital in Ohio where every department, lab, engineering, maintenance, environmental services, made a pickle jar to reflect their department. And this is one of my favorites, because isn't that what you want to do? When people are always whining and complaining, don't you just want to stick a pacifier in their mouth and say, oh, poor baby? And this one is my all-time favorite. Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. Whining and complaining never matters. It's never fixed a problem. Talking about somebody behind their back, that's never a conversation that matters. It never makes that person a better person. It takes courage to actually deal with a problem, to suggest a way to fix the problem, to work on fixing it, instead of just whining about it. It takes courage to talk to someone instead of just talking about someone. But those are the only ways that you ever fix problems, the only ways that you ever help somebody to be a better person. At Midland Memorial Hospital in West Texas, where my friend, colleague, and co-author Bob Dent is Chief Operating and Nursing Officer, one of the respiratory therapists, after a big storm had come through town and knocked down a bunch of trees, he went out with his chainsaw, cut off a big 2,000-pound tree trunk, and started carving away on it. You can sort of see where this is going, can't you? And he brought this big pickle, which they had a contest, is now named Pickle Pete, is now the first thing that greets employees as they come through the employee entrance at Midland Memorial Hospital. And this thing has become a tourist attraction. Everybody wants to get their picture taken with Pickle Pete, including, you'll recognize a few faces here, when Matt Schaefer and Jamie Wiggins visited Midland, they, of course, wanted to get their picture taken with some of our certified values coach trainers at the hospital and with Pickle Pete. Now, this is the staff of the emergency department at Midland Memorial Hospital. You can see their pickle jar. They keep it on the front counter, and every time they catch themselves complaining, they'll put a quarter in. Some of their happier patients on the way out have thought it was a tip jar and have put money in it. And this man is Kit Bredimus. Kit is the director of the emergency department. He's the man who led their culture change initiative, where they have gone from literally being in the bottom 10% nationally for patient satisfaction to now, month after month, being in the top 5 to 10%. This man is also Kit Bredimus. That is Kit Bredimus, picture taken a year and a half and 150 pounds heavier. That man is the same as the man you just saw in the previous slide. And that is also that man. That's Kit Bredimus. That picture taken earlier this year at the annual conference of the American Organization of Nurse Executives, where Kit was honored as being the Young Nurse Leader of the Year for the entire country. Now, notice the sequence here. The first thing that happened was Kit had to say to himself, I'm going to be expecting my people to be more proud of themselves, more proud of their work, to be more committed, to do the hard work and make the sacrifices. How can I do that if I'm not willing to do it myself? The first thing he had to do was change his own attitudes, his own behaviors, and then through that example and through his expectations for others, they changed their department, and the national recognition came as a byproduct only later. And that's what we're going to see at Chinola. We're each individually going to make that effort, that commitment. We're going to start to change our culture. We're going to start to see changes in how our kids, our family members, our community react to us. And then we're going to see the national recognition that they're receiving at places like Midland Memorial Hospital and Fillmore County Health System, some of the other organizations we've worked with. And you'll start to see these door hangers and other indications that Chinola is a pickle-free zone. Don't whine, don't complain about problems. That doesn't mean we don't identify them. Of course we do. It means we don't just whine and complain. We actually do something about them. And we have in the first 38 hospitals that have taken this pickle challenge for charity that we're going to challenge Chinola to do. The first 38 hospitals have raised almost $80,000 for the charities that they have chosen by turning more than 300,000 complaints into contributions, 25-cent donations. But in the process, they have also made their organizations much more positive, much more pleasant, much more cheerful places to work. Now, the second element of the Florence Challenge, the commitment we're asking you to make, is to be self-empowered. You know, in the book, The Florence Prescription, which you all have, it says empowerment is not a gift. It's not something that someone can give to you. It's a choice that you must make. And the truth is that nobody can empower you but you. It's an inside job. But once you've given yourself that power, no one can take it away from you. And the Self-Empowerment Pledge, which is in that book, has 7 promises, one for each day of the week. And so here's a question that I ask everybody at Chinola. If you knew that it would change your life in a positive and permanent way, would you invest 1 minute a day in yourself? 1 minute a day to make your life better. And if you're willing to make that sacrifice of giving up one TV commercial a day, if your answer is yes, here's what you do. Every morning, start your day by making that promise. Say it out loud to yourself. That'll take you about 15 seconds. Do it again in the middle of your workday. Whenever you can, do it out loud. Much more effective that way. Do it with other people. Much more effective that way. One more time right before you head for home or right when you get home. And one more time right before you go to bed. 4 times 15 seconds. That's 1 minute a day you're investing in yourself. Repeat those promises like you really mean them. Oh, at first you won't. On Wednesday, you'll say, I will do the things I'm afraid to do, but which I know should be done. And you'll hear a little voice in the back of your head say, oh, like hell you will. But that's just the voice of negative self-talk telling you lies. And talk over it and keep making the promise until it becomes true. So let's look at those 7 promises more carefully. On Monday, you promise to take complete responsibility for your health, happiness, success in life, and you promise to not blame others for your problems and predicaments. On Tuesday, you promise that you're not going to give in to low self-esteem and self-limiting belief. You're not going to let the negativity of other people prevent you from achieving your authentic goals and from becoming the person you're meant to be. And on Wednesday, you promise to do the things you're afraid to do, but which you know should be done, and to ask for help when you need it. Now, I see those first 3 promises, personal responsibility, personal accountability, and determination, as being the foundation of a strong character. And you build on that with Thursday's promise by promising to earn the help you need in advance by helping other people now, and then repaying whatever help you receive by making the commitment to serve other people later. And you know, during the course of life, we all fall down. We all have to face rejection and failure. And you're promising to do that with courage and awareness and perseverance so that those experiences will actually become the platform for future acceptance and success. And you know, we all face adversity in the course of a lifetime. But what you're promising yourself is that by your conscious choice, when that happens, you will find strength and compassion and grace through your trials and not allow yourself to be a victim. And then Sunday's promise is this, that your faith and your gratitude for all that you have been blessed with, and if you live in the United States of America today, you have many blessings indeed, and that faith and that gratitude will shine through in your attitudes and in your actions. And here's how it works. Every day you're promising yourself to be responsible, accountable, determined, to make a contribution, to be resilient and positive. And every day you're going to catch yourself whining, complaining, procrastinating, blaming other people for your problems, not taking responsibility when you know you should, and pretending that you have no power. And you're going to get what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. This is trying to hold two incompatible beliefs at the same time. It's a form of mental illness. It's as promising yourself to be responsible, accountable, and determined, and then saying, well, it's not my fault. Someone else did it. This is so unfair. Poor me. Wah, wah, wah. You're promising yourself to be an eagle and then acting like a chicken. And that is cognitive dissonance. And at some point, one of two things will happen, must happen. Either you take the easy way out and stop making the promises, not because you don't have enough time, it's 1 minute a day, but because it does get hard. If you keep making the promises, you must begin to change your attitudes and your behaviors. And as you do that, you're going to start to see better results in your life. We have seen people quit smoking, lose weight, get out of debt, finally write the book they've always said they're going to someday write, finally apply to graduate school like they've always said they've going to do, finally confront the bully who's making them miserable, finally confront their own shortcomings and become the person that they know they're meant to be. We've even seen people break tenacious drug addictions by promising themselves to be responsible and accountable and determined. You're going to see it too if you make that commitment. So I'd ask you to do this. Take the Florence prescription book home, read that chapter, read the promises that are at the front of the book one more time, and ask yourself these two questions. Number one, if you personally were to make a good faith effort to live those promises, would you be better off in every dimension of your life, at work, at home, financially, even spiritually? Question two, if everybody at Chinola made a good faith effort to make those promises, to live those promises, would you do a better job of taking care of your kids and their families and of supporting each other at work? And if you're being honest with yourself, the answer to those questions is going to be absolutely yes. How could it be anything else? So why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you invest that 1 minute a day? Why wouldn't you in your department as a group make those promises, not just to yourselves, but to each other? And if you do that, you're going to see incredible benefits. Give up 1 minute a day with this guy trying to sell you things you don't need to invest in yourself. And what we're seeing in hospitals everywhere, like here at Midland Memorial Hospital, is people making it a part of their daily huddle. This has been going on for more than 3 years now in Midland. And if you look around the room as people are making these promises, you see that almost nobody is reading them. They almost all know them by heart. And I've been working with Midland long enough I could go around the room and point to person after person after person and tell you the kind of amazing changes they have made in their own personal lives. And we're going to see that at Chinola as well. And the third element of this commitment I'm asking you to make is to be fully engaged. And that begins by knowing what your values are and living those values. And when I ask this question, what are your values? Most people don't know. Oh, intuitively, we know we have good, strong, solid values, but we're not able to define specifically what those values are. We haven't thought about how are those values reflected in my attitudes and in my behaviors. If we had, if all 2,000 of us had done that at Chinola, the results of that culture assessment survey would have been a whole lot more positive, wouldn't they? Most of us have not thought about how would I make a decision if I could honor one value or another, but not both. Any parent who's ever been told your kid needs tough love knows you're put in that position. You can do the tough, you can do the unconditional, but you can't do both at once. And of course, the worst time to try to decide on that one is when your little darling calls you in the county jail at 3 o'clock in the morning. And when you get clear about your values, it helps you avoid those saddest 2 words ever spoken toward the end of our lives, if only. You know, if only I had taken better care of myself. If only I had paid more attention to my relationships. If only I had traveled, written my book. If only I had been more responsible with my finances. And when you get clear about what your values really are, it helps you avoid those regrets. No one on their deathbed ever says, I wish I'd watched more television. They say, I wish I would have reflected my values in my relationships, in my experiences, and how I took care of myself. And because most people haven't thought about what their values are, I wrote the book. I'm going to tell you what your values are. And we're going to do a quick review here. And over the next 3 years, we're going to be working on this in a variety of ways. And what I want to tell you is that these really are your values. The first 6, authenticity, integrity, awareness, courage, perseverance, faith. Everybody needs those values because they lay a solid foundation of personal character strength. Core action value number 1 is authenticity. Don't you want to be authentic? Have you ever bragged to your kids about what a great phony, what a great fake, what a great fraud you are? Of course not. We all want to be more authentic. And here's how the course works. For each of the core values, something fundamental like authenticity, there are 4 cornerstones. How do you put action into the value? And it begins with self-awareness, knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing the things that trigger panic attacks and depression so that you can confront those things. Number 2 is self-mastery, not being your own worst enemy. 3 is self-belief, not cheating yourself by settling for anemic dreams and goals because you convince yourself you don't deserve and are not capable of more. And finally, being true to yourself. And I included a picture of this statue by a Colorado artist named Bobby Carlyle because it's such a great metaphor. Isn't that what life is all about? It's carving yourself out of the block of stone you're born with by carving away those things you're not proud of and building up those parts of you that do reflect you when you're being your best. Core action value number 2 is integrity. And I won't go through all the cornerstones for each of the values now. We will do that over the course of the next 3 years. But it means being honest and reliable. It means living with humility, being a good steward of your resources. It means being true to yourself, being true to who you really are. I read a book recently on integrity, and the title of the book was, If You Know Who You Are, You'll Know What to Do. And that's such a great bridge from authenticity, knowing who you are, to integrity, doing the right thing. And the third cornerstone is awareness. Being awake, being alive, being aware as you go through life. And the cornerstones are mindfulness, simply being awake, objectivity, seeing things as they really are, not as you wish they were, not as you fear they might become, but as they really are. Empathy, which is so important for us in the healthcare fields, and then taking the time for personal reflection, looking inward so that you can more effectively look outward. Core action value number 4 is courage. Having the courage to do the things you're afraid to do by confronting your fears, by transforming fear into positive energy that catalyzes you to take action, and by making connection with other people. Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. Perseverance, core action value number 5, is making that decision day after day. It is simply courage that endures. And you persevere by being prepared physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. Challenges are going to happen. You prepare for them in advance by having a positive perspective when they do happen, by having the toughness to do what you have to do and not being a victim. And then by learning from the experience. That's how you make perseverance a core value. And core action value number 6 is faith. And when we talk about faith as a value, we're not talking about religion, religious dogma or belief. We're talking about the faith that everybody, regardless of your religious belief or non-belief, the faith we all need. Faith in yourself, faith in other people, faith in the future, and hopefully faith in something bigger than the almighty dollars. And it means living with gratitude, forgiving those who have hurt you, putting love into your life and into your work, and having a sense of spirituality. It's standing at the front of that long road and having the faith to keep walking, even though you don't know where that road is going to take you. Now, the second 6 values build on that foundation of character strength and they're about taking effective action, about getting things done, about making a difference in the world that you work in, their purpose and vision, focus, enthusiasm, service, and leadership. And let's look at each of those a little more closely. Core action value number 7 is purpose. The first sentence of Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life, says it's not about you. And when you have aspiration to a sense of commitment to making things better, to making your life better, that's living with purpose. And then being intentional, being committed to doing the work. And having a sense of purpose that's about more than just making the most money you can and the most status you can, but of making a difference in the lives of other people. And it means being purposeful, not just in your work, but in your hobbies, in your family life, having that sense of balance. And the more clear you are about what your purpose on this earth is, the more you're going to be able to create a vision of what you want your future to be. And you do that by paying attention to what are the opportunities around you, by imagination, by envisioning a future that is better than what the world is today. Jonathan Swift said, vision is the art of seeing the invisible, and it's something that only we humans have. But then you've got to be able to articulate that vision to others. How do you describe it so that you can get them to help you out? And perhaps most important is believing in the vision, even when times are tough, even when nobody else thinks that vision is possible. But once you have that vision, as you work on that vision, you must be willing to make the commitment to focus. You know, we all have limited time. We all have limited resources. So you have to know, what is your target? What is the most important thing? You have to be willing to concentrate your time, your energy, your money on achieving that goal. And the more rapidly you move and the more you sustain your momentum, the more able you're going to be to focus and to not allow the distractions of modern life, the cell phone, the internet, the television set, to distract you, to deter you from achieving what are your most important goals and becoming the person you're meant to be. And I am increasingly convinced that this value, number 10, enthusiasm, is the master value. When you are enthusiastic, it makes everything else easier, doesn't it? It's easier to be authentic if you're enthusiastic. It's easier to have courage and to have a sense of purpose and to be focused, even on the hard things, when you have enthusiasm. And when you're not enthusiastic, everything else just sort of drags, and it's harder to achieve your goals and to be the person you're meant to be. And you start by having a commitment to a positive attitude, by having energy. And we'll talk about how energy is really more a choice than it is a physical state, by being curious, by asking good questions, and by having a sense of humor. Those are the core elements of an enthusiastic life. And then core action value number 11 is service. And of course, that means being helpful and having a sense of charity. It also means being compassionate, and not just to the kids you serve, but to the people that you work with, because we're all struggling with something. And because you can't pour out of an empty pitcher, it means being willing to and committed to renewing your own self. And you know what? If you really take to heart core action values 1 through 11, you will become the kind of person who, through your example, through your expectations, through the way you encourage other people, you will become the kind of person who influences and inspires other people. And that is the best definition I know of what it means to be a leader. You inspire other people, you influence other people, and then you have successes and good faith failures that you celebrate. This is a picture taken in the Culture of Ownership classroom at Midland Memorial Hospital in West Texas. Every single employee in that organization has gone through our 2-day course on the 12 core action values, and it has been team taught by their co-workers who have become certified values coach trainers who teach that course. And it is part of new employee orientation. Every new employee, as part of orientation, goes through that 2-day course. And what it does is it gets everybody on the same page when it comes to what are the personal values that define who we are and what we stand for, and frankly, what we won't stand for. And those are the things we're going to be doing at Children's Hospital of New Orleans over the next 3 years. And so I return to that question. How do you change the person that you see looking back at you from the mirror? How do you help that person be a better, stronger person, a better parent, a better citizen, a better human being? And you do that by doing the things we're talking about, by being emotionally positive, by being self-empowered, by being fully engaged, by living your values. In the Florence prescription book, it says this: if we each do our part, we will change our lives for the better. We have seen that happen many, many times. We have seen people lose weight, quit smoking, write their books. We have seen people make that commitment and make their lives better. And if we all do our parts, we can change our organizations for the better. And again, we've seen that happen over and over at places like Midland Memorial Hospital and Fillmore County, where the CEO got a whole new team and didn't have to change the people because they changed themselves. And if enough of us change our organizations, we can change our world for the better. We can make New Orleans a better place, Louisiana a better place. We can make the United States a better place. And that's our commitment together. I'm excited for this journey. I hope that you are too. It's going to be quite a journey. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you soon.